Welcome everyone to another episode of Old Roommates. Today on the show, we revisit the 1989 movie Sex, Lies, and Videotape. So make yourself a nice cold glass of lemonade, turn that video camera on, and settle on in. The episode is about to begin.
Welcome, everybody, to Old Roommates, the only podcast that revisits pop culture through a middle-aged lens. This is Brian.
And this is Christina.
And today we are talking about Sex, Lies, and Videotape. And Christina, I hate to do this to you. It is not lemonade. It's iced tea.
Whatever.
It's the whole movie.
It's not the whole movie, first of all. And he loves his lemons.
Written and directed by Steven Soderbergh. August 18th, 1989 is when this came out. Christina, we begin as we always do by talking about then. Please tell me and us the first time you watched Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
It was way back when, on video.
Mm-hmm. On videotape?
Ironically enough. On video. And I loved this movie.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I never knew that.
I loved it.
Okay.
I've watched it many times since.
Wow.
I know it doesn't seem like the type of movie that you can watch over and over again, but it wasn't really over and over again. But I remember like really, really liking this movie, and I was kind of fascinated by this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the characters. Truth be told, I didn't love the main character, Annie. What was her name? Anne. Wasn't a big fan of Anne back then, but I loved Graham.
Mm-hmm.
James Spader. I loved Cynthia.
Yeah.
I thought, I'm not saying I agree with all the choices, but I just loved watching them. I thought they were really great in their roles. And I loved just the whole idea of it. I really loved this movie, and I recommended it to people, and I loved it.
Did you like it though?
I hated it.
I never knew you were such a fan of this movie.
Yeah, I loved it because I know there was something about this movie I just really related to or something. I don't know, it just spoke to me. What about you, Brian?
So I also saw this on videotape way back when, and I really didn't like it. I was so disappointed because, so obviously I was young, but I think anyone that listens to the podcast or knows me knows I was always really into movies, and I would always watch things that were maybe not so appropriate or a little age inappropriate and all that. But I always listened to critics. I always wanted to see like what people were talking about, and like the edgy movie, the indie movie, and all this. And I feel like this is probably one of the, oh God, here we go again. Possibly one of the most popular indie movies.
I would say so,
yes.
Yes.
And that sort of broke through, and so I rented it as soon as I could, and I didn't really care for it. I was completely bored.
I can see someone younger being bored by it.
I thought everyone was just creepy, and I mean everyone I thought was creepy, and I of course watched the whole thing, but I was just kind of like, okay. I guess that was that.
Were you, as a young boy, wanting to see more of the sex?
Yeah.
Because you don't really see a lot of that,
no,
right?
No, you don't. And I think I was expecting more emotional blowouts, because the whole thing is so like, it's like...
It's very even.
Yeah, very even. Very like almost bubbling under the surface. Like, the secrets are going to come out, the lies are going to be revealed, and you're just waiting for these big emotional blowouts. And there's one,
right.
But
because everybody has such strong feelings for the other people.
Yeah.
And they never really talk about it. So you're waiting for that to be talked about.
And the big challenge, you're not going to like this at all, Christina, but my biggest challenge back then was James Spader. I found that he was so creepy that I was like, I don't know why they're being honestly so nice to him.
Yeah.
He's so creepy. His voice, his tone, the way he looks, his
different
staring,
from everybody.
Yeah. His like the shirtlessness is a little uncomfortable at times, and like I don't know. So but at the same time it's like I appreciated the talkiness of it all. And I think it started strong and lost me as it went on. But I wasn't not a fan. I don't think I ever saw this movie a second time other than for this podcast. So when did you rewatch it?
I rewatched it probably a week and a half ago, somewhere around there. And I was very much looking forward to seeing this, of course, because it was a good, one of my favorites. So I wanted to.
I will say no. I will say I was looking forward to it too, because to be middle-aged now,
to see it as an adult would be a definite experience, and I think you have a better appreciation for
relationships,
indie movies,
or relationships and marriage,
movies. Things like that. So so I was looking forward to it. So I carved out some time to just sit and just watch it, and I was so glad I did. And I had forgotten a little bit about it. I forgot about the therapist, which I think is just an interesting scene now. It opens up with her talking to the therapist, and I think back then not too many people talked to therapists. I don't think, or at least didn't talk about it. And now I think it's almost very commonplace, not a big deal if you have a therapist, right?
Yeah, I feel like too, it's like, and I think in movies now, it's like when we see that, it's like, oh, this is just an opportunity for the character to catch the audience up as to where they're at without a lot of flashbacks and things like that.
True. So I had forgotten a little bit about that. But I fell right back into it. I'm like, this is great. I loved what's his name? Peter Gallagher. I always liked him as an actor anyway, and I loved hating him in this. He's such an asshole in this movie.
So, all right, we're just going to jump right in.
Yeah,
right?
Go ahead.
Okay,
go ahead.
So I was looking forward to this as well, like I said. And what's so funny is I remember being young and thinking Peter Gallagher is John. Peter Gallagher is not I didn't find him to be cute enough to whatever. And after my middle age, I'm like, oh, I totally get it.
Yeah, totally.
He is sexy, the confidence, his attitude, his playfulness, his I'm like, you know what? He
seems like the type of man that she will marry.
And that would absolutely cheat on her.
Oh,
with her sister.
With her sister, no less.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But he is sexy in this, and I think, but again, all lost on me when I was younger. And I want to be clear, I wasn't a teenager. I mean, I was probably in my, I don't know, early 20s,
Oh, I was thinking you were younger than that.
Yeah, because 89, it would have come on video when? I don't know. I don't even know how long things took then. Say 90, 92, whatever. So it was maybe I was 19. So it starts off with Andie MacDowell's character, Anne, talking to her shrink, and I wrote, a woman after my own heart. She's worried about garbage. And that is such a thing for me. I hate litter. If I see litter, I do pick it up, typically, if it's safe to do so. And but every couple of weeks, I walk around my own neighborhood and I pick up any litter that's whatever. It bothers me so much, our pollution issues, our litter issue, our trash issues. And so when she's talking about it, I'm like, oh my God.
But I think in her case, it's more of a metaphor, where your case is very literal.
Yeah, it's literal. Well, it's also that she can't get out of her own mind.
Right.
How can I, but the thing is, I subscribe to that. I really can't fall asleep if my bedroom is messy. I really can't watch TV if the room is in disarray or if there's dishes in the sink.
Sure.
I understood that part of her where it's I can't possibly think about, say, my marriage when the world is falling apart. I find that I get into those zones sometimes where it's I was speaking very candidly, where it's your brain is just preoccupied. There's so much stuff going on. And Carl and I talk about this. It's it's hard. It's oh my God, what's going to happen if this, and you get so wrapped up in it. But luckily, I have a relationship with my husband where we talk all the time about how we're feeling about everything. And so it's good. But I think with her, it's so interesting because it's almost that how I took it from her is oh, she just can't really, how can she think about herself? There's so many other things going on.
Right.
And in fact,
you find an avoidance thing.
An avoidance thing. And you find out that I think it was her husband like, wasn't her husband pushing her for therapy? Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, there's like one or two sentences that allude to
Yeah, I
that.
think so. Yeah.
And you get the sense that he suggested it for her because he doesn't want to
talk to her.
Right? I mean, that's kind of
exactly
that's what I got from that.
I did write, though, I think, is she not a bit flirty with her shrink? I found her to be very coy.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't like her
at
the beginning. Not necessarily with her shrink, but she just seems very coy through the whole entire movie to me. But yes, I did find her to be a bit flirty.
Yeah.
And they're talking about, didn't they talk about sex or something?
Well, he says to her, did you masturbate?
Oh, the masturbating. Yes.
And I want to say something for Andie MacDowell's, to her credit. She blushes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I, listen, she did a movie called Green Card shortly after this. And there's a scene where she blushes and it's in real time. And we talked about this with Meg Ryan and When Harry Met Sally. I didn't, I don't think you can fake blush.
No.
So the acting, I think, is very strong. I think it does take, now and then, it's the same thing. I know she won awards. I believe she won awards for this. I believe she was nominated for things for this. I did find her character to be the hardest one.
Yeah, it's
because
a little hard
it's tough. It's a tough character. I think her performance is good. I think her character is just a little tough. It's a little hard to.
I mean, she's not very likable.
Yeah.
You do want to like her, but she's just so sort of in her own head. She's trying to keep up appearances. She's trying to do the right thing, but she's clearly unhappy. And the whole world around her is just so much more interesting than her. So she's very boring. And it is very hard to like her. I will say I liked her better in this rewatch than I did before.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe because I'm, closer to her age and I kind of get it a little bit. But I definitely like her a little bit more. I appreciated her as guarded as she is and as, sort of waspy as she is supposed to be. She's still open to conversations. So, like with the therapist, you get it because it's a therapist. But at one point she says, he asks, how are things with John? This made me laugh. She's like, they're going fine. There's this thing when, I was going through this thing when I didn't want him to touch me, but so she's open enough to talk about that stuff. And even with her first couple of conversations with Graham, she is a little uncomfortable, but she's still willing to talk about it.
That was such a moment for me when they're sitting in the restaurant.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa. Like, I thought she was so buttoned up, and she talks about sex a lot.
Right. And
for someone who's not having it.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's supposed to be so conservative
prim and proper,
and all that.
and yeah.
But I appreciated that about her this time around, whereas before I found it a little less believable. Was I getting to a point? I think I was getting to a point somewhere down the line. But anyway.
Relatability, I think.
But relatability, yeah. So she is harder to relate. Whereas, and then with everybody else, they're, they are who they are. You see right away that John is this dog. He is, he has a little bit of a charm to him, which is why people like him. But he's also, very self-centered. He does what he wants. He doesn't really care. He
puts. I mean, talk about like just bold. He's like, no, let's have sex at my house, like just to see if they can get caught.
He does not even think twice about it. He doesn't even. He's like, oh, all right, you want that? Sure.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't even occur to him to be a little bit more protective of his wife, right?
He's definitely like the alpha male. He gives James Spader a hard time about pretty much everything.
Yeah.
But you get it. You get his character. I think that's part of it with Anne's character is that I feel like the other three leads, like they are living and speaking and being how they are.
Yes.
She's sort of towing the line or walking that balance of who she kind of thinks she should be. Right. And that's why it's so...
And who she wants to be
or,
is a different...
maybe.
But I think who she's trying to portray herself as is different than who she wants to be.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's why she's probably the hardest character to get a handle on back then.
Yes.
And I think a little bit even for me now, it was a little bit like, I think it's a good performance, but I think the character is just tough. And it's tough because it's like essentially the lead character.
Right.
I have a huge note. Actually, before that, I wrote, ew. They have John in Sin, played by Lara San Giacomo, who is amazing in this movie.
Yeah, she really is.
Loved her in this.
She really is.
Amazing in this movie. And she and John have the sweatiest sex. It's up there with Jerry Maguire.
Yep.
And he gets up and he puts his clothes back on to go back to work and work the rest of his day.
Yep. He's probably
smells. Not even a rinse. Like blah.
Yeah, go to the bathroom.
He is covered in
sweat.
Wipe
yourself off.
It's like putting your bathing suit on after.
Yeah.
But it's like putting on a wet bathing suit. Yes. But it's the flip. It's like I'm soaking wet, putting on dry. It's like I'm soaking wet, putting on dry clothes. He doesn't even towel off. Like it's so gross. Thank you for saying that. It is so gross. Sometimes I feel a little almost prudish. Sometimes I'm like, I like sex. I have sex. But it's like, but you're watching these.
But you want to wipe yourself down.
God.
It's just uncomfortable.
Yeah. I'm not, it's like,
but you don't want to smell and you don't, it's like, I don't know. I'm with you with that.
Listen, I'm not going there.
Okay.
Your boob is providing.
Thank you. I was going to say something, but and then I was like, maybe I shouldn't, but this is Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
I mean, so you're not going to talk about it in this episode.
So one of the things I will, okay, it's going to be too, I don't know. Maybe
you can always edit
maybe
it out.
I shouldn't even mention it. I don't know.
How about this? The older I get,
yes.
Okay, and Carl and I have been together over 20 years. The older I get, the shorter distance of time goes from being intimate to showering. Does that make sense? When I was younger, there wasn't much of a rush. There wasn't much of a rush to say shower after.
Yep.
As I get older, it's like intimacy. All right, I'll be right back.
All right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Thank you for that. I'll be back in a flash. I'm going to run a 20-minute path.
Yeah.
Okay, no, this is what I'm going to say. All I'm going to say is I appreciate condoms more.
Oh.
After I stopped using condoms. Because of the cleanliness of it.
Oh, okay.
That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I think it paints the picture.
Yeah.
Jackson Pollock style. Okay, here's a big note though. Christina, tell me if this bothered you. Okay. I noticed it so bad. And this is something that is so weird to me. And I think it's not great. Why don't people in this movie ever play music? There's so many scenes of silence, sitting in silence. I think Carl and I have music playing all the time. If we're cooking, if we're just sitting around talking, if we're having dinner, if we have people over, we have background music. Yeah. I think, and I obviously it's a conscious choice, obviously, but it's like, I think because of that, it makes it weirder and weirder. And I think like there's scenes, particularly the first scene between Amy McDowell and James Spader, it is dead silent. You could hear a pin drop.
When they're in her house.
And it's so awkward.
Yes.
To me, she knows there's already some nervousness with this guy. Mm-hmm. She doesn't really even want him there. He knows. So to me, it's like, I think I might set the scene a little better. I might play some music, relax the situation.
Well, and what's interesting is at the dinner, there is music playing. There's almost like a classical music playing in the background.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I am. Because it reminded me a lot of, whatchamacallit?
Sleeping with the Enemy?
No. Oh my God, no. We just watched, last week's episode. No, oh my God. Kevin Spacey and Annette Bening.
Oh, American Beauty.
American Beauty. How they used to have like the the music in the background, and there was like a scene about that.
Oh shit! I don't remember music in that scene.
Yeah, it was faint, but it was there.
All right, well, that's good to know. But I do feel like a lot of the scenes possibly could have benefited for a little bit of background music to make them feel a little more lived in. It felt like,
but it might have been a conscious choice.
Oh, I'm sure it was. Yeah,
because they want you to feel more awkward, right? You want to have that awkwardness between that first conversation, and
but even with it's others too. It's even with Cynthia and John. Like they're laying there post-coital.
Yes.
You love that expression. And there's no music, and I feel like I don't know. I
feel like there could have been music on there because she seems like the type of person that always has music
on completely. Well, yeah, completely. Was there any playing at the bar?
I think there was playing because didn't the guy say they're playing our song or something?
Oh my God, he was amazing.
He was so funny.
Of course, that's the guy in broad daylight sitting in a dive bar with
exactly
like no windows. Like it is. I loved that bar. Because it was so so bare bones. Like that's where you go if you want to hang out with a friend and have a good time. Like nobody's there.
And that's exactly what
it's
Cynthia
open.
Would work.
Exactly. And it's so fun, like funny and fun. It feels completely real. I love like the set design of that. I love I'm like, oh my God, that is totally a bar I would hang out in broad daylight, even though there's not a window to be found and it's nice and sunny outside. That's where I would want to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like we have been to bars like that.
Yep. The plant on John. Now, back then, I will say, like, it made no sense to me. Like, that's awfully weird. But then I realized he gets her plants as gifts. He got her the other plant before, remember?
Oh, right.
So I didn't notice it before. And I was like, wait, what's the deal
Which is weird. Like, why does he do that?
And she's like, oh, is that for me? And I was like, oh my God, that's the other, because he got her a plant before. And later on, Anne, Andy McDowell's character, is talking to Cynthia, and she's running her finger along the mantle.
Yeah.
And she's touching the very plants that her husband gave to her sister.
I never got that.
Like, she's literally touching the plants, and they're talking about, like, Graham. It's interesting.
And I love picking things up like that.
And I definitely didn't notice that before.
No, definitely.
But it's so funny when he's like, she's like, is that for me? And then she looks at the plant and she's like, is that for me? Which
she's so good.
Which is really crazy. That's actually in the trailer. That is in that is
really?
For me in the trailer. Yeah.
No.
It's so very racy.
Wow.
Okay, so then it's the scene in the restaurant, and who says, can I tell you something personal? Does Anne say that to Graham, or does Graham say it to Anne?
I think she says that to him.
Okay. She says, can I tell you something? She's like, I think sex is overrated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I was like, wow, really? Yeah. And it was like, wow, really, Anne? Like, she's so guarded. She's so withdrawn. She's so, like, anti-sex that, like, I mean, I feel like a ballsier character would have said that. Like, what's the big deal about sex?
Well, that's the thing. It's like,
it's a little strange for her.
It's a little bit strange.
His college buddy.
That it was like beginning. Yes. So I'm going to back up a little bit.
Please do.
But so you get introduced to Graham.
Yeah.
And I think it's really funny. She answers the door. He's like, my name is Graham. May I use your bathroom? It was like, wow. Well, hi, how are you? He must really go.
Yeah.
And then, so that, he's socially awkward from the start, like from the very beginning. And then he goes in, he comes out, and she goes, that was quick. And he goes, false alarm. Like, you just met and you're talking bathroom talk? Like, it's so bizarre.
I also don't know why anyone would ever say that. I don't think I've ever said that to someone I don't know. Oh, that was quick.
False alarm.
Just a number one, eh? Like, and what does that mean, false alarm? Like, what,
so
he thought he had to pee or thought he had to shit?
Well, that's what I was like. I'm like, well, usually you can tell if you have to pee, and even if it's like a false alarm, something will come out, right?
Comes out. Yeah, and then, or is he taking a shit and just farted? Like, that's gross. I don't need to know that.
Either way, it's like such a weird conversation. And then they start having like this like kind of an intimate conversation in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And because he's asking about marriage, like, do you like marriage?
Yeah.
And she's just like thrown back, but I think she likes like talking about it.
Yes,
because she doesn't really have a lot of opportunity to talk except for the
shrink. Course, and I think that's what she was slipping into, that mode of like, oh, I like these kinds of questions.
And then out of nowhere, he says, I'm ready to use the bathroom finally. I'm like, this is really, really awkward. I also wondered
so weird.
if they mentioned who, like, how did he even end up there? Who reached out to whom? Like, did he reach out to John to say he was coming to town? Okay, because I that was something that was a little bit interesting.
So, Christina,
but I did say interesting because I just noticed this echoey dining room really adds to the coldness of the whole relationship.
Thank you. And so my first note is no music at the dinner either.
Interesting.
No music at the dinner, no music when they're hanging out, no music at the restaurant. Yes, there's no music at the restaurant. And there's no music when they're getting ready. So, like, when she's getting dressed or someone's getting dressed, and it's like, or they're both getting dressed. And, like, really, it's like, I feel like maybe that's just me. I always have music on.
Yeah, and maybe it's just, like, that intentional thing. I don't know.
I did laugh out loud when John says to Cynthia, drive safely. And she's like, yeah, right. Like, she's just like, she's she
is such a good character.
Incredible character.
Such a good character.
Yeah.
I love, love, love her. And then she, talk about saying every single thing that's on her mind. Do you know what I mean? Just constant. She's like, oh, how I wish Anne would walk in oh no, I'm sorry. I wrote that. Oh, I wish Anne would walk in on them right now. I wrote that.
Oh my God, it's sick.
I know, but you feel like in the bedroom. Come on.
Oh God,
it's
I know.
Just so
terrible.
Disrespectful.
So disrespectful.
But I did say that she seems too uptight to have a sex conversation with a stranger.
That's my point.
I really love it.
Yeah.
He's creepy, but also seems very easy to talk to and refreshingly honest. So I liked that about him too.
I have something to say. Through a middle-aged lens, he seems gay. Just he's very sort of like the stereotypically gay, like that, very soft-spoken.
Well, the way he holds himself.
And he's talking, and by the way, his first thing is, I'm impotent. Like when they're like, let's talk about something personal, he's like, I'm impotent. And it's like, so I wonder if it's like that gay guy thing where women feel more comfortable talking to like gay guys about maybe personal
once the sex
stuff.
Thing is, once you know that they're not interested in you, it's easier.
Yeah, and she's like, impotent. And so, yeah, I don't know. It was just, I was like, I think it was more shocking for her character than for his. But I was like, this is, it's a bit of a stretch for Anne, at least from what we know of her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Anne is watching Graham. My next note is Anne's watching Graham sleep. Super crazy.
Yeah, I didn't really get that.
What if she got caught? That. What if he woke up?
Well, doesn't he? Does he?
Well, he opens his eyes.
He knows that she's watching.
He knows that someone was there. Probably her. I'm sure he knew that. Yeah.
And I think he figures out at that point, like they're a lot more similar than because he obviously likes to watch certain things as well. Yeah. Being the observer.
Yeah. Next note, Anne running her hand along the mantle of plants that her husband gave to Cynthia.
Crazy.
Why does Cynthia want to see Graham?
So I think it's because I was much more invested in the sister relationship this time too.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of sisters. And I know that can be we get along great. We're all good. But some of them did not get along great.
Okay.
And I think it's just such a complicated relationship with the jealousy and sibling rivalry. And clearly Cynthia had a lot of that going on. Clearly Anne was the favorite child, probably, or at least that's what she, kind of felt growing up. She probably, screwed up a lot, that kind of thing. And I think anytime she sees something that Anne has, she wants it to sort of satisfy an internal thing of, I am just as good as Anne.
Yeah.
Like that. I really feel like that's where it's
But she's very vocal about it, is the shocking part.
Yeah. So, but I think it's still satisfying an inner thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, and even Anne is just kind of like, why do you want to see him? Like, I don't feel comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And then Cynthia's like, well, what are you hiding?
Exactly.
Like,
right.
So it's like, and there's no good answer for either of them.
Yeah.
And so she obviously ends up giving her his address, which is
right. Because if she kept keeping her at bay, she'd be like, well, then something's definitely going on. Yeah.
Right. And then she's not as good at arguing
right.
with Cynthia would be either. So,
Anne and the iced tea. I like that that was very tension filled with the iced tea almost spilling, and it does spill a little bit. And I love that he used newspaper to clean it up. Like, just shows that he has nothing in this house, like nothing in this place. Cynthia,
except for the lemons and iced tea.
Of course,
he always had lemons. Well, he ran out of lemons, didn't he?
He did. Cynthia,
did he? He ran out of the iced tea.
He ran out of iced tea, and there was just water.
He still had lemons.
Did he? Cynthia visits Graham. What are you doing here? I wrote an excellent question.
Yeah, and I was glad that he asked that question, and he was very confused about that.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, getting back to Graham, you get that glimpse of him watching the videos. But what's funny, middle-aged lens, it wasn't as strange as I remembered it to be. Him watching these videos.
I completely agree.
It's actually not that weird.
Yeah.
Like, he's just, it's not like perverted. He's on, he's very upfront about what he's doing. It's not like a hidden camera.
Yeah.
And he's just talking to these girls. He's not forcing them to do anything. He's asking them questions. They're answering. Of course, some of them will do more than others. But I think, and then he gets off at watching them, watching the interviews. I'm like, that's not that bad.
No. He's completely upfront and honest about everything.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that makes all the difference.
Yes.
Because even that is consent. And so it's like, I want to record you talking about sex because I get off on it. And it's like, oh, so that's the choice. Anne chose, I'm not, initially.
Right.
And so it just is so funny. And I have to jump a tiny little bit. Anne ultimately does do a tape.
Yes.
Did you see how long they were? How long the tapes were?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Anne's was 46 minutes and 2 seconds.
Okay.
Do you want to guess how long Cynthia's was?
That was probably like 2 hours.
2 hours and 9 seconds.
Wow. That's not surprising.
So, kind of random. She's wearing Lara San Giacomo, Cynthia. She's wearing a Bundesliga T-shirt, which is German soccer, which is kind of funny.
Funny.
And I never would have tracked that. I was like, oh my god, that's so random. I thought it was funny.
It's probably from her own wardrobe.
Yeah. She's like, I liked how she said it was like a test tube.
Oh,
she thought it would be like a test tube, but it was all veiny, etc. And all that. Like, I loved that whole thing with Cynthia talking, and
so good.
Yeah,
that interview was.
It just feels so good. Natural. Excellent acting. Lara San Giacomo is so good in this. Yeah,
and I love that she, is surprised at him. Like, she's expecting probably someone, a little bit more like John, or someone she can manipulate or whatever. And I think that with him being so straightforward and honest and letting her take the lead was so refreshing to her. And I loved that whole scene too. But I loved the very end when she's leaving and she looks drained. She looks emotionally drained. Like, she's like, what the hell just happened?
Mm-hmm.
And she just leaves, and she has almost like a softness to her. Like, she had just let go of so much of that bitterness.
Mm-hmm.
A little, maybe.
Well, and also the fact that she was talking about John.
Yes.
And that she let go of the lie.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. And she probably talked a lot about Anne, and she probably, she got a lot of that out of
So there's probably some of the exhaustion is her possibly some guilt for talking so much.
Yeah.
And a little bit oh shit, it's all out there now.
It's all out there, but she looked so drained. It was just great.
There were some funny things. Like, my next note right after that is when Anne says, "You're in trouble," or something. She's like, "Oh my god, you didn't." She's like, "I did." She's like, "Oh, you're in trouble."
I did, and I really liked that relationship. Like, I appreciated those interactions with them so much more this time around than I did before. I said that, the sister relationship is so interesting, and, because they call each other out on things. They have these intimate conversations, but there's still so much resentfulness between both of them, the jealousy and criticism and all of that.
But Anne really wants Cynthia to think she kind of wants Cynthia's approval. She brings the dress. What do you think of the dress? What do you think of this dress I got for Mom? Oh, what do you think? Like, I think Cynthia, even though she is the younger sister, I do think she weighs heavily on Anne because Anne thinks of her as so free and cool and all this kind of stuff. So as much as Anne may disagree with her lifestyle and choices, there's something in Anne that's like she needs some type of approval from Cynthia.
Yes, and I also feel like she's very jealous of Cynthia in a lot of ways.
Oh, no, freedom and free ways.
She has all that. I mean, it's just so complex and so real.
Mm-hmm.
Just so many real emotions between siblings. And I loved it. And I appreciated it so much more this time.
Yeah. Interact. Whatever that means. I don't know who said it though. Maybe John. And then I laughed out loud at the Anne and Cynthia conversation right after she does the video.
Yeah.
And then I laughed out loud again with John and Cynthia talking about it. And he's so frustrated. He's like, did you have to masturbate in front of him?
Yeah. Oh my God. It's so fun. Two different.
Yes.
Yes.
I definitely didn't laugh once way back when. Now I did laugh a few times during
because
this movie.
It seems like real conversations, right?
Yeah. Well, when you have these strong personalities like Cynthia and John and Graham, that it's like, yeah, things are going to happen and they're still going to be a little shocking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I did write just dog. John is such a dog, foregoing an important client for sex.
Oh my God.
Family crisis.
So stupid.
Family crisis. And Anne's picture's right in the background.
Yeah, but I do say that Peter Gallagher is A+ in this.
Yeah. He is. He's great.
So
I'm telling you. Like the acting, I think all of them are great.
But even the acting within his character, because he's trying to he's all at work. He's so pompous and always making it seem like he has everything under control. None of this is going to backfire on him until it all does. But I think he's just so good in this.
Yep. I did question why. So I wish there was like a little bit more in between. So Cynthia, she does the interview. She calls John because she's so worked up.
Oh, right.
And has the crazy. That's the crazy sweaty sex.
Right. No, but in the beginning
more,
of it too.
maybe,
yeah, right.
But that's even more like it's literally dripping off of them. Like,
yeah.
Oh my God. And then, I mean, she has this conversation with Anne, but it wasn't super like intimate, this conversation. And then somehow she starts having like these guilty feelings. She starts rethinking everything and things start turning around for Cynthia. But I almost felt like the sex in between was a little bit misplaced. Like I almost wish that she hadn't done that. I understand that she was all worked up. But I really felt like I would have appreciated it more if she had said no to him ever since the interview. Do you know what I mean? Like I wish there wasn't more sex in between.
And that would have made John even angrier. I kind of like that. Yeah, because Graham kind of ruined his wife and now he's ruining his mistress.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it seemed a little bit misplaced. I get why they did it.
Yeah.
But it still felt like, well, what turned her around? Because all of a sudden now she's feeling bad. Now she's saying no to John. Now she's saying these different things.
It may, although at the same time, I almost respectfully see it your way, but think about it this way. Then it's like, because you might, if that was the case, I could see you, Christina, going like, oh, please, but she's never going to have sex with him again. Come on.
Right.
But I think it was almost like, oh my God. Now that I'm being honest with myself, and the sex is good. She's like, but like, now I understand. Now it's almost like, this isn't it.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't as satisfying
anymore because it's not secret anymore.
And she's kind of a better understanding of why she's doing it. And it's just not
exactly. Yeah. And because she's also talking about her upbringing, her relationships and all this kind of stuff. And now it's just like, oh my God, I had sex and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Been there, done that.
And she does say, you can go now.
She does.
Yeah, you can go now. So then the other thing that was a little bit confusing to me, and this is with Anne, and how she wakes up in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden she like wakes him up suspecting him of having an affair. And I'm curious if there was a deleted scene or something, because they're really... Go ahead.
What blew my mind is that she said Cynthia, my sister. That came out of left field, and I was like, "Whoa, why would she say that?
It's all
that?
sort
It's
of
so
coming
gross.
out of left field, because he never really gives her any reason to suspect that he's having an affair, aside from the fact that they aren't having sex themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I get that, but then was it determined who stopped touching who first? Like, I remember there was a little bit of a conversation.
She stopped touching him first.
She stopped touching him first.
And then she's like, "You stopped touching me." He's like, "Yeah, because you didn't want me to touch you."
Right. Okay. So that, even then, it's like, well, why is she all of a sudden, unless she's just thinking about things more, or thinking about sex more,
well, she had
or
called,
something.
She called his office a couple of times. He's like, "Oh, actually, he's not in."
Yeah,
and like, so you saw a little bit of that.
Yeah.
You saw, and then Graham had made comments about him to her, like back in college, there was this girl. And so you got the sense that like she was, putting two and two together, like, oh, he slept with your girlfriend. I think she was putting that together, and it's like, oh, so he would cheat on he would cheat on his best friend. And now he's awfully comfortable not touching, or me not touching him and him not touching me. But and that to me is okay. To me, the jump was, holy shit, your sister? That is quite the accusation.
And it felt like they were getting close. Like, it felt like she and Cynthia were getting closer, like in the previous conversation.
Yeah.
So why would she all of a sudden say, "Wait, are you sleeping with my sister?"
Right. Very weird.
Right.
That was weird. Yeah. I don't get it.
And then, but I did love after that, we'll forgive that or whatever. And then it was great. I like that it happened in the middle of the night, because he's so unprepared. Like, he's asleep, and he's like, what? Like, and I thought that was like brilliant on her end to do that. But then at the very end, she's like, "I'm sorry, I'm being silly," and la 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 la. I don't know. I'm just have so much time in my hands. That's all I think about. And then they're laying there, and she just says, "You never used to say the word fucking." And she had said previously to Cindy, like, "Cynthia, why are you always saying the word fucking?" And she's like, "Well, that's because what it is," and all whatever. Yeah. So, and then his eyes open, and I'm like, oh my God, it was so good.
Mm-hmm.
It was so good. It was like, no, this isn't over.
Yeah.
She still suspects. Why? We're not sure, but she still suspects, and she's on to you, and your life is about to go away.
Yep. Things are getting complicated. No, they're getting real simple.
Real simple.
Yeah.
I also love the subtle changes where Anne is starting to wear darker clothing. Did you notice this?
Yes. Yeah.
And she starts almost like mirroring Graham a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that.
Much more casual. I mean, jeans and a black tank top.
Yeah.
I mean, just like being much more casual with her look.
Yep.
Much more relaxed in literally not trying as hard.
Yep. I also loved that when she went to see Graham and she's all upset, and this is after she finds the earring, which was great. Kind of, foreshadowed a little bit, but whatever. She comes to his house and she's ready to she's just pissed. And she's like, "Yeah, videotape me like all your girls, blah, blah, blah." And I love that he has scruples. He's like, no, he did not want to videotape her. He's like, "No, you're not in the right state of mind."
Yep.
He's like, "No, I'm not going to do this." And I love that about him, because it's weird. And I just didn't feel like he was as weird this time. I felt like he was quiet, and he was trying to kind of deal with who he is. And he didn't make any apologies. He just lived his life the way he wanted to live his life, but he was very honest. And I don't know. I really didn't think he was that strange.
I still found him weird.
Yeah.
Very weird.
Very weird.
Very, very weird. Where do you get your money from? Under my mattress. What will you do when the money runs out? It won't.
Yeah, I've noticed that this time around too. It was kind of
I want out of this marriage. Andy McDowell says.
Yep.
My next note, good punch, John. I thought it was a great punch.
That was a great punch.
Yeah.
It was a great punch.
And, you know, I mean, not completely unwarranted.
Right?
He is ruining John's life.
Yeah, I mean,
even if John is living
videos. I would have done the
thing.
same thing. He doesn't know what these videotapes
Yep.
are. He doesn't know what happened. You know, he knows what he did, but he doesn't seem to care. Doesn't really put that into the equation at all.
Mm-hmm.
I did love when they start watching the video. I loved all of this. I was like all in. I was like on the edge of my seat. I'm like, what is on these tapes? I want to see.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that it started out black and white, all grainy, because I felt like that really added to like that, just the whole feel of it. Like it's so kind of dirty or whatever. But then it goes into real life, and you have like see like the actual conversation between the two of them, and I loved it. I was all in. I just loved every minute of it.
The acting throughout all those videotapes, it always feels natural, and it makes it much more, to your earlier point, it makes it much more normal.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh no, like people don't mind talking about sex to a stranger or someone who's, you know, who's just asking questions innocently, but you know what they're going to do with it. And so it's like, you know, yeah, I don't care. It's just me and you talking. Sure. Ask me whatever. Maybe a little different in today's day and age, because, you know, things can be shared so easily.
Yes.
This is like a one and done. Like, there's a physical videotape. There's a point in the movie towards the end where I was like, wow, Graham feels awfully important to himself. Like, there's something happens after John beats him up, where it's like becomes more so like the Graham show, and I became a little less interested. It was very much like, because I felt like the punch, and I feel like the reveals were like, oh my gosh, this movie's getting really good. And then it like really slows down again, I felt. And it's because of Graham. I feel like there's not too much that shakes him up. He seems pretty unflappable as a character. Yep. And he does break all the cassettes, right? But I
loved that scene. Yeah. I loved when he just finally is just like, because in a lot of ways, like, Anne is now becoming the Graham to him. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So he's, you know, really forced to face what's going on inside of him. He's saying he's so honest and all of that, but inside he's maybe not quite as honest with himself.
True.
So, and she's making him see that. And then he sees that his honesty, you know, he's, you know, and I think they address this in the movie anyway, but like, you know, he feels like he's just so into himself that he wants to be in his own little corner of the world and not like interact with anybody or not affect anybody. But then he realizes that, like, you know, he's been in town for what, a week, a month, whatever. And he's completely affecting everybody around him. Yeah. And she's helping him to see that. And I think that's like that whole revelation, like, okay, well, these tapes aren't real. Mm-hmm. This is not really real. And that's when he like goes through it. And I thought he was great in that scene.
Mm-hmm. I still think I did write, I think Spader is a bit of a snooze in this. I just feel like he still is so stilted and awkward. I feel like Graham is Graham.
Yeah.
And I feel like even towards the end, or even at the end of the movie, he doesn't feel any different, even in the way he communicates to Anne as a character. And I kind of wish, like we're talking about how Anne changed, I would kind of want Graham to change a little bit. And he does to the point of smashing.
Yeah.
But I still think it's like he presents himself with his stilted way of communicating, his sort of hesitancy. Like, he's very methodical in things he says. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. And
I think I think he purposely does that because he doesn't want to be personally involved. Like, he's much more like an interviewer and not part of the relationship.
Yeah.
I think that's what this whole movie is really
like the voyeur
about. Like, he's just the person that interviews and is not involved in their relationship. And then at the end, he is in a relationship with Anne.
I know.
Which is really nice, I thought.
I kind of wanted a little more warmth from him.
Yeah. I liked how they were holding hands and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so then it says, I think it's going to rain. And I think he says, "It is raining."
Mm.
Right? And then it ends.
Yeah. I kind of liked it.
It's funny because I'm wondering, like, how does this end again? How does this end again? I just wrote the regular at the bar. I didn't write down his name or the actor's name, but he is perfectly horrible. Perfectly horrible. I just think it was so, that bar regular is so fun. And
he's so good.
Yeah.
At one point, she looks at him at the drunk, and she's like, "Do you live here?"
Well, I also thought it was nice that she, Anne is the one making the steps to really keep Cynthia in her life.
Yes.
And I kind of was like, and I clearly didn't remember that way back when, but I was like, I liked when Anne showed up at the bar and was like, I was thinking maybe we could get lunch or something, or whatever she says sometimes.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, these characters are evolving.
They are evolving.
Except, well, actually, more like the female characters are evolving.
Yeah.
And all it took was a pervert and a video camera.
So we talk about his yelling and whatever. I do like some of the things that he said that I wrote down. He said, "I look around at John and Cynthia and you, and I feel comparatively healthy."
I wrote that down. I feel comparatively healthy.
Very, very true. And then and then he says, "You're right. I've got a lot of problems, but they belong to me."
Yep.
So he had like a
some
lot
great
of
lines.
Yeah.
Great lines. Again, I just think like we're watching the other three characters evolve and think about their things. And I don't know if it's the performance or if it's just the friggin' character. I mean, I don't know why I'm expecting every character to change. Maybe it's because the other three are, and he almost seems unrealistic in the detachment. That's the only. But I'll tell you, that's really what
I will say something right here. He is unrealistic in the detachment. He did that purposely. He mentioned something about being in 9 years of pushing everybody away, basically, essentially what he says. So I think, yes, I think he has evolved slightly. I think if all of a sudden he shows up in these light colored clothing and he's walking the kid with I think that would have been a lot.
Yes, Christine, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
But I think it would have been a lot stranger if he had evolved so much. Like he's just learning this about himself, and he's opening up enough
to at least be in a relationship,
to be with Anne.
Yeah.
And he's sitting outside on the stoop, and I don't know, like it seems like he's gradually growing.
So what do you think about their relationship? Do you think they're having sex, or do you think he's just giving her like orgasms with?
No, I think that they are in a relationship. I think that they are probably having sex.
Yeah.
And I think that they're having like an open and honest relationship. I think they get each other. So
you think she cured his impotence?
I don't know if there's a cure. I don't know much about impotence, okay? I've never experienced it in my life. I think it was almost like it was an impotence because he was pushing it that way. Like he didn't want to have sex, so he created his world in that he was so separate that he couldn't get off unless he was completely separate. I think that he had sex with her that night before he ruined the tapes. I think he ended up having sex with her.
Believe it or not, that's on my notes.
I
have some trivia, obviously, and I have a match game.
You had an effect on me. I've spent the past 9 years structuring my life so this wouldn't happen. That was him. So anyway, I said the directing of this is great, and the casting is perfect. I can't imagine anybody else in any of these roles. I think they were all perfectly cast.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote, he loses Kirkland. Yay!
Well, and it's so great because he's so obnoxious before it all comes crashing down. Like he's such a dude. Like it's like you're just like, yes.
Yeah.
So more, less, or about the same?
I actually think I liked it more.
It's going to be also more for me, but only slightly, really. I still struggle with the James Spader character, but I think the acting of Andy McDowell, Larson Jacob, and Peter Gallagher were really great. And I actually laughed. I did not expect to laugh, and I laughed more than a few times.
Yeah. I definitely saw different aspects of it, and I definitely appreciated Anne a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
She annoyed me more than anything back then. But I actually, believe it or not, I appreciated Graham's growth more this time around, which I feel like you didn't think there was much there at all.
No pun intended.
Right? Oh.
The budget was $1.2 million. The box office was $36.7 million. That is wild to me.
That is wild.
It won the Palme d'Or at the 1989 Cannes Film Festival. Originally written for Elizabeth McGovern.
I could see that.
But her agent didn't like the script and didn't even let her see it.
Wow.
Yeah.
How'd she feel about that?
Allegedly, the screenplay was written in 8 days.
Oh my God.
They had 1 week, because of the budget, they'd only had 1 week to rehearse and 1 month to film.
Wow.
So, Independent Spirit Awards. It won Lead Actress, Supporting Actress, Best Film, and Best Director.
Nice. Very nice.
And I have a match game. How about you? Are you looking something?
I have my match game
on your phone.
Here.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
There's a remake in the works, Christina.
Oh boy.
A remake. But to keep with the times, the new title is Sex, Lies, and Blank.
Okay. I got it. Ding.
The 2024 remake of Sex, Lies, and Videotape will be called Sex, Lies, and
TikToks.
Oh, that's good. That's better. I had YouTube.
Oh, that's good. That would be good about 10 years ago.
No, you're right. I also wrote down streaming.
Streaming is good. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I can see TikToks though, right? Like these 20-second videos. Okay, I have a match game as well.
Oh my God, really quick.
What?
Really quick. So I got this from the library, okay? And
were you embarrassed?
No, I was not.
Oh no.
So the woman, I got an email saying this DVD is in, there's another DVD that we're watching. And so they both came in. But they came in on different days, but I picked them up on the same day.
Oh my gosh.
So she gave me the other one, whatever it was, I don't remember. And she's like, oh, no, one more. And she's like, sex.
Oh!
She said sex so loud. And she turned beet red, much like Andie MacDowell in the beginning of this movie. And she didn't say another word. And she's like, here you go. Like, thank you.
Have a nice day. I guess you will.
Oh my God.
I don't have to tell you. Oh, so funny. I know.
Like, oh, you have another one. Sex. And she's like, oh.
It is interesting when you get these, because I get a lot of these from the library.
Yeah.
And it's interesting the ones that people comment on.
Uh-huh.
They're like, oh, I love this one. Oh, that's a good one. And it's usually like, really? But
you're like, we'll see about
it is pretty funny. Yeah, there was one, I forget which one it was. It was a while ago. And someone was like, oh, I love that movie. And it was one of the ones I really did not. And I was like, you have shitty taste. Anyway, no judgment. Anyway, okay, so are you ready for my match game?
I am.
Okay. So most people assumed Graham was masturbating while he was watching the videos that he made.
Yes.
But he wasn't. He wasn't playing with himself. He was just blank. I know, it's a little out there. He wasn't masturbating. He was just...
Let me think about this.
All right.
Ding.
People assumed Graham was masturbating, but he wasn't. He was just...
putting himself to sleep?
Okay.
Like listening to an audiobook or something?
I just said squeezing lemons.
Oh my God, you're obsessed with the lemons,
obsessed.
Christina.
He seemed obsessed with lemons.
Oh my God.
Lemons.
I mean, we're going to have some iced tea. That was Sex, Lies.
No, you're supposed to stop at sex, like the video.
Sex. Sex, Lies, and Videotape. Get it from your local.
Yes, get it from your local
library.
And see what the librarian does when you do.
And that's it for us and for this episode of Old Roommates.
Thank you for listening. Please remember to follow us on Instagram or YouTube, where we have our episodes as well as a little extra.
And if you have any questions about our show, any suggestions for movies we could revisit, reach out to us at oldroommatespod@gmail.com.
Thanks again for listening.
This is Brian.
And this is Christina. Until next time.